We are in 1 Samuel, and we're going to be finishing up Michal. But we have a couple of chapters that we're going to be, that I'm going to just kind of briefly go over, because it's so important that we know the character of Saul, of Michal's father, because she's much like her father. And the different things that we'll see, and that what he does, and how just his heart and David's heart. How so we're just going to start, because we might be a little long. So we're going to start in chapter 20. So what we saw last week was Michal allowed David to escape, and she put, the household idol in the bed, and then her father says, why have you, let him escape? Why have you deceived me? And she says, well, he said to me, let me go or else I'm going to kill you, which was all a lie. But she did it for self-preservation. So we learned how Michal, just going back to what she knows, it was all about her protecting her life instead of allowing the Lord to go before her. So we saw her heart, how she had the idol in her home. So obviously she did not worship the true God of Israel. So here we go. David escapes. And what I think is funny is we'll start in chapter 20, verse 1. David flees, but he goes to meet Jonathan, which is who? King Saul's son. So I was reflecting in my own life, when I'm in trouble, do I go to someone else or do I go right to my husband? I go right to my husband. I was laughing because just a few weeks ago I got stung by a wasp in the basement. Just a random thing, just on my foot. I didn't know what it was. I was telling the girl, stay upstairs, it's a poisonous spider that just bit me on the foot. I didn't know what it was, and it was Monday, so Tim wasn't home, but I tell you, I got myself upstairs. When I saw that it was a wasp, went straight upstairs, and who did I call? It was my husband. He's like the first one I thought of. He's the one that I called. I was in need. I was in pain, because it's very painful. And he's the first one I thought of to call. So why David here, who is now going to be, his father-in-law wants to execute him. He goes to Jonathan, which is King Saul's son, instead of going to his wife. So that kind of shows their relationship as husband and wife. And so he goes to Jonathan and he tells Jonathan, hey, your dad wants to kill me. And Jonathan's saying, no, that can't be true. I think you misunderstood him. That's not right. That's my dad. He would tell me if he wanted to kill me. He would tell me. If he wanted to kill you, he would tell me. And like he did before, but he hasn't said anything, so I don't think it's true. But let's test it. And this is in chapter 20, where they do a test. So David says, okay, I know he wants to kill me, but there is a holiday that's coming. It's the new moon holiday, and if I'm not there, he's going to get mad. So if he gets mad and threatens me and threatens my life, then you know that he's going to kill me. But if he doesn't care and he's like, oh, all right, that's cool, he doesn't have to be here, well then he doesn't want to kill me and he'll come back. So they set up at a meeting in the field, and a sign with arrows and an errand boy, that if the arrows go this way, that means dad doesn't want to kill you. If the arrows go this way, that means the dad does want to kill you, and you got to go. So David and Jonathan had planned all this together. And this is all in chapter 20. It's very interesting. I hope you read it. So it's the dinner. King Saul is upset. Where is David? Where is David, Jonathan? And Jonathan's like, oh, he wanted to go and visit his family for sacrifices and so forth. And King Saul wanted nothing to do with that. He says, he gives some choice words to his son. So in chapter 20, verse 30, this is Saul, and this is Saul's heart. Then Saul's anger was aroused against Jonathan, and he said to him, you son of a perverse, rebellious woman, Do I not know that you have chosen the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of your mother's nakedness? So he is like mad, and he wants to blame Jonathan now. So now Michal allowed him to escape. Now Jonathan is allowing David to go worship with his family. So Jonathan's like, oh my gosh, my dad wants to kill you. So he goes out to the field and they do the sign with the arrows and the errand boy, and they say their goodbyes. And so now David's on the run. So David is on the run, and in verse 21, David goes to a house of the priest. So he goes to the temple, and he's like, "Do you got anything to eat?" And he's like, "Yeah, I got something to eat." And this is where he eats the showbread, and then this is where he gets back Goliath's sword. But there was someone there that sees him and goes and reports to Saul that, hey, I saw David and he's over here in the temple, and they're like, oh no. So in verse 21, Saul is losing his mind at this point, because now he's at all costs to get him. Chapter 22, it says that now David, his popularity is growing, because now remember, he was a warrior. He beat Goliath. He slaughtered the Philistines, all these things. So he was a warrior. So people are attracted to him. In chapter 22, verse 2, it says, and everyone who was in distress, everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was discontented gathered to him. So he became a captain over them. And there were about 400 men with him. So mind you, David's on the run, and now he's got 400 men with him. Everyone who is unhappy, everyone who is unsatisfied with whatever they're doing, even people who are in debt are coming to be under David's leadership. They knew he was anointed. They knew he was a warrior. They knew that he was in the right. So they wanted to be with David. So 400 men. And now Saul is like, hey, I hear that David is over here, and so everyone's coming against me. Everyone wants to kill me. No one wants to help me kill David. What is going on? And they're like, no, let's do this. Let's go into, I think it's Nob. Is it Nob? Who were in Nob? Yes, it's Nob. Let's go to Nob and find David. So they go to Nob, and King Saul is just like, goes to that priest and says, hey, I know David was here. And he goes, yeah, but I didn't know anything was wrong. And he goes, no, he's running away from me, and you allowed him. So King Saul ordered for all the priests to be killed. So now King Saul is killing the priests. There was 85 priests there, and King Saul ordered them all to be executed. And then they went to the city of Nob, which was the city of the priests, and he struck with the edge of the sword both men, women, children, nursing infants, oxen, and donkeys, and sheep with the edge of the sword. He slaughtered everyone that was there. So this is the mindset, the heart of King Saul, as he's killing all of these people. As he thinks everybody is going against him, he goes and he slaughters everyone there. And now we're in verse 23. See, lots of things happen. Now we're in verse 23. Now David and his men go into battle against the Philistines. So there's 400 men. But the thing is that we look here, and it's when you're reading this, I hope you go back and read this. As you're reading this, David is always inquiring of the Lord. He's always asking the Lord to go before him. He's always waiting on the Lord for an answer before he does anything or go anywhere. He always inquires of the Lord, which teaches us a lesson that we are not to move forward, not to do anything unless the Lord is in it. Because if the Lord is not in it, you're going to fall and you're going to fail. And it's going to be the flesh. And you're going to be striving. And then guess what? You have to strive to maintain. And this way, but if the Lord goes before you, and this is what the Lord wants, and which David always inquired, and therefore David always, the Lord always blessed him, the Lord always moved him forward. And now in chapter 24, as he conquered all the Philistines, now in chapter 24, Saul is hunting down David with 3,000 choice soldiers. So it was the finest of the finest. And now they're in the rocks of the wild goats in the wilderness of En-Gedi. So they're in like the mountains where the wild goats go in, there's caves and all these things. And in this chapter 24 is when King Saul goes into the cave to relieve himself, basically taking a potty break. But guess who was in that cave? It was all the men, all David's men, and David. And David's men are saying, go kill him, this is your time, go kill him. And he's like, no. And what he does is he cuts off a piece of Saul's robe. That's how close he was. And he says, no, I'm not going to kill King Saul. And so then after King Saul goes out of the cave and goes back to his men, David screams out, hey, I'm here and I was able to kill you, but I chose not to kill you. I chose not to touch God's anointed because God put King Saul in the throne. And this is all for you to see David's heart. And then King Saul's like, oh my gosh, you didn't kill me. You had an opportunity to kill me and you didn't kill me. He declares, David, you're a good guy. Your heart is good. God is with you. You will be king. So here King Saul declares that David will be king because his heart is so good. And what's interesting is that David refused. Though he had the pressure from the 300 soldiers, men of valor to go kill him. He's right there. He's relieving himself. Do it. How can you not? And David's like, no. Just the pressure that the men must have given him because of King Saul is why they were running, right? Just the stress of all that, hiding and trying to fend for yourselves. And here's the guy that's trying to kill you, and you're not going to kill him? And David's like, no. He is God's anointed. God has him here. No, I'm not going to touch him. And verse 25, verse 1, Samuel dies. So the priest dies. And we're not going to go over Abigail. So we're going to jump to verse 25, verse 43 tells us that now David also took Ahinoam of Jezreel and Abigail. So both of them were his wives. So now he has 2 or 3 wives. No, he has 3 wives. He has Michal, the wife number 1. He has Abigail, and now he has Ahinoam. So now David has 3 wives. But check out verse 44. But Saul had given Michal his daughter, David's wife, to Palti, the son of Laish, who was from Galim. Now, mind you, when this happens, I try to look how long David was running, and 4 to 8 years is basically how long he's been running. So within the 4 to 8 years, Michal was given away. Michal was given to Palti. So now, to close 1 Samuel, there's chapter 26 is awesome in 1 Samuel. Yeah, he's crazy. And then you have a verse. So to close, basically, 1 Samuel at the very end, King Saul and Jonathan were both killed in a war, in a battle against Philistines. And if you read those chapters that we skipped over, you'll see the madness that how King Saul has sunk into his craziness. I don't know how else to say it. He was just insane as he went, and he consulted with a medium. He brought up Samuel from the dead. I mean, it was just pretty interesting. So if you get a chance to read all those chapters, it's very, very good. But at this very ending of, to close 1 Samuel, King Saul and Jonathan were both killed. And so in 2 Samuel, we begin David's rule. So now David is beginning to rule, and he's doing all kinds of things that rulers do. A lot of wars, a lot of battles, because remember, the house of King Saul is still there and still trying to take the power right? They're still trying to claim their family as royalty, and David's coming up as now some more soldiers and more supporters come in under David, and he and the house of David is trying now to overthrow Saul's family. And then in the chapter 3 of 2 Samuel, you guys keeping up? There's a lot that goes on, but this is David now taking hold of his house, of the kingdom. There's a general by the name of Abner, and this is chapter 3. He's a general in the house of Saul, but Saul is dead now, and now his son, I'm going to mess it up, Ishbosheth is now trying to rise up, right? But now the son of Saul begins to accuse Abner of all kinds of things, and Abner was high-ranking official in the army under King Saul, and he Ishbosheth began to accuse Abner of sleeping with King Saul's concubine, and that's Rizpah. And he's like, I never slept with her. I don't know what you're talking about. And now you're accusing of me of this treason, because it was treason to sleep with a king's concubine. That's a big offense. So Abner got all upset. So now Abner went to David to help set up David's throne over Israel. So now Abner is switching sides. And David said, okay, that's cool. You can come over on my side, but you got to do one thing. The next time you see my face, you need to have someone with you. And who do you think that is? Michal, his first wife. Verse 13 says, and David said, good, I will make a covenant with you, but one thing I require of you, you shall not see my face unless you first bring Michal, Saul's daughter, when you come to see my face. And verse 15 says, verse 14 says, so David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, Saul's son, saying, give me my wife, Michal, whom I betrothed to myself for 100 foreskins of the Philistines. Could have claimed the 200, right? The 200 foreskins, but no, he's just saying 100, because that's what father-in-law had asked for was 100, but he really did 200. And verse 15 says, and Ishbosheth sent and took her from her husband, from Paltiel, the son of Laish. Then her husband went along with her to Baram, weeping behind her. So Abner said to him, go, return, and he returned. Now, as I was reading this and saying this, Michal was married to another man. Never mentioned a divorce. King Saul could have given her a divorce, right? He's king, but never mentioned a divorce. So I say she was a polygamist, because it doesn't mention. So I don't see the word divorce. I don't think she was divorced. So I say she was married to 2 husbands. She had 2 husbands. She knew perfectly well that David was not dead, because her dad, Daddy Dearest, was hunting him down all these years. So he's not dead when they were married. And I was thinking, why didn't she wait? Why didn't she wait for him? She said she loved him, right? Then she threw him under the bus, remember, with telling Dad that he was threatening to kill her. But she did not wait. Her love for David was only I said skin deep. Barely even any love, because as soon as he was gone, she got married again. Well, maybe not as soon, maybe she waited. But still, between 48 years, her husband, the love of her life, let's say, is running for his life, hiding in caves, doing all these things, and she's at home waiting for him, right? No. She's out getting married. Dad gave her away to Paltiel, is that right? Paltiel. And she's now remarried. Why didn't she wait? Why didn't she say, no, Dad, I'm still married? Why didn't she do anything that as a wife would do. As a wife that would wait for her husband. As a woman waiting for her love of her life. Why didn't she not wait? Because she was not 100% sold out for Christ, for God at this time. God, as David was. As David is out and about running and hiding and trusting God and seeking God, and all before he went out to war, he would inquire with the Lord. But she didn't. She didn't do any of that. She had no faith. She had no trust. She had no love for the God that David worshipped, the one true God of Israel. So she could not wait. She would not wait. She wanted to make her own way. She wanted to stay in the same society, the same people and the same. She was royalty. She needed to be taken care of, and that's what she wanted to do. That's how she wanted to stay, and that same status, maybe the same friends or whatever it is. She wanted to be remarried, and Dad did it for her and gave her away to someone else. But what about us as we walk with Christ? What are we called to do? The Bible tells us we need to crucify our flesh, right? So those desires of being well taken care of, those desires to do whatever we want, to not care, right? Those are our desires, and we're called to crucify them, right? To deny ourselves. We're supposed to crucify what the world wants us to do. We're supposed to crucify what the world thinks that we should do, what our friends want us to do, what celebrities want us to do, what Facebook is telling us to do, We're called to not do any of those things, but inquire in the Lord and have Him direct our paths, have Him guide us and lead us. And it's funny because we many times have to crucify what our friends say and think, and what they think that we should do, when we know that the Lord is telling us to do something else. And lots of times the Lord is telling us, wait. Genesis 2:24 we read last week is Michal and David became one flesh. They're one. And yet she did not wait for him. She didn't think much of the one flesh. But maybe Michal thought, hey, David's a fool. My dad's going to catch up with him. 3,000, the best soldiers in Israel. He's not going to make it. He's going to die. David is a fool. Why would he do that? Why wouldn't he just come and just let, Dad take care of business, and just, why is he running? What's the point of it? And isn't that funny how the world thinks that what we do is pointless and is foolishness? Maybe Michal thought that David was a fool. 1 Corinthians 1:18 says, for the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, to those who do not know what it is to have God's peace, to have His love. To those who don't know who He is, they think we're fools. Why are you on church on a Tuesday night? Sunday? Wednesday? Friday? What are you doing? That's dumb. You know how many TV programs you're missing? How many, hours of sleep you can be getting? They think that you're a fool. And maybe that's what Michal thought of David. I'm not going to wait for him because he's a fool. Worshiping that God of Israel. Look where he's at. Look what he's doing when he can be here in the royal palace eating, grapes or whatever they eat. But no, he's on the run, hiding in caves. She thought he was a fool. But what we are called is opposite of that. We are called to wait. We are called to be patient. We are called to labor in prayer. We are called to love our enemies. Whoa. We are called to suffer for Christ. The Bible tells us in Isaiah 40:31 is to wait. But they who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall walk and not faint. to be patient and to love. 1 Corinthians 3:14. Love is patient and kind. 1 John 4:8. He who does not love does not know God, for God is love. So love is patient. Patient is love. How we need to be that way for those who think we are fools, right? Because when they're calling us fools, they're basically our enemies, right? As they're trying to tell us what to do and what not to do. And then the Bible's telling us, no, you need to wait. You need to love them. You need to be patient with them. And better yet, you also have to pray for them. The Lord is near to all who call on him, to all who call on him in truth. To have that truth in us, to be calling upon his name and praying, that's what we're supposed to do. Be in prayer for those who are waiting for. Be in prayer for those that we love and who we need to be patient for. We need to be in prayer for them. And the Bible also tells us we're going to suffer. 1 Peter 2:19 through 21 says, For this is commendable, because of conscience towards God, one endures grief. One endures suffering wrongfully. For what credit is it if, when you are beaten for your faults, you take it patiently? Basically, if we do something wrong and they beat us down or we get spanked or whatever it is, we take it patiently. Like, okay, we deserve that. We did it wrong. But when you do good and suffer, if you take it patiently, this is commendable before God. So if we're over here and we're coming to church and someone's trying to tear us down or trying to stop us, or someone is making fun of us or make, just whatever it is, we're to take it patiently, knowing that what we're doing is good, but we are supposed to take it patiently. If someone asks us to lie, to cover up for somebody else, and we say no and we get in trouble for saying no, we are supposed to take it patiently and say, okay, that's fine. I stood for righteousness. It is commendable before God. For to this you were called. We were called to walk in righteousness, right? We were called to walk in truth, because Christ also suffered us, leaving us an example that you should follow his steps. So this is what it is. We have to wait upon the Lord, as David did. He was patient with Saul, as Saul tried to kill him several times. And he loved, because there's several times in the chapters that we skipped over, he would be like, I could have killed you, and I didn't. And there's 3 times, I believe, he did that. He could have killed him, but he didn't. And this is David's heart, and this is not what Michal's heart was, because Michal wasn't worshiping the same God David was. Michal was not walking the same path David was. Michal had none of these characteristics, so she went ahead and got married to somebody else so that she can keep living the same lifestyle as she was accustomed to. It didn't bother her. It doesn't say anything that she was at all concerned. So, and the way we see that too is because Michal's husband was going behind her crying, right? Went all this way crying, and it never mentions what Michal was doing. Never said anything. And here's Paul Teal weeping and crying. And for a man to be doing that in front of a general, Abner, and he not care, there's something going on, because it doesn't record any Michal's thoughts, or maybe she was weeping. It doesn't say anything, but we know for sure Paul T was crying and weeping for his wife. And I just want you to notice Michal, the wreckage that she's leaving behind. When she went against God and she married this other man, all the wreckage that she's leaving behind. She's leaving this poor guy who obviously loves Michal and is walking behind Abner with tears. It just doesn't care about anything. And all Abner says is, go and return. Go and return. It's like, stop with this whining. And don't you feel that way sometimes? Stop with all this nonsense, with all this whining. Get out. So that's the wreckage that Michal left behind, is this poor Paltiel just tearing it up, just crying. So chapter 6, and then I think this is the last chapter. Chapter 6, so verse 1 through 11. So now David is king. So in all these chapters now, David has now established his kingdom. David gathered all his choice men of Israel, 30,000, and they went to go, 30,000 men, they went to go get the Ark of God. Okay? They went to go get the Ark of God. Something bad happens. They don't do it, they don't follow the rules. Specifically, I think the ark almost fell. It didn't fall, it almost fell. Uzzah tried to catch it. He touched the ark, bad thing. Uzzah was killed instantly. So now, David left the ark there at someone's house, and they left it there for several years. But now it's time, as we go on, they said, okay, it's time, we're going to now go back and go get it, because we need it to be in the city of David. So they went back to go get the ark. It says the ark. Is it called the ark? I don't know why I keep saying the ark. It's the covenant, right?
It's the Ark of God.
Oh, the Ark of God. So it is the ark. So for some reason I thought of Raiders of the Lost Ark right now. I was like, that's wrong. So they finally went to go get the Ark of the Lord, and they came back to bring it back to the house of the city of David. So here it is. It's coming on back. It says, verse 12 says, now it was told King David, saying, the Lord has blessed the house of Obed-Edom, and that's where they left the ark of God. So David went and brought up the ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David with gladness. And so it was, when those bearing the ark of the Lord had gone 6 paces, that the sacrificed oxen and fattened sheep. So this is a long process. So every 6 paces, they would do a sacrifice. So this was no easy task. This is what they did all the way to the city of David. And it was, so this is a big deal. And so it was, when those bearing the ark of the Lord had gone 6 paces, they sacrificed oxen and fattened sheep. Verse 14 says, then David danced before the Lord with all of his might. And David was wearing a linen ephod. So David was praising and worshiping God with everything that he has. With totally abandoned to the Lord, total surrender to God. And I think that's funny, because here, as we lift our, we want to lift our hands, and we're like this, like we're like embarrassed to lift our hands to the Lord. Or sometimes people are like this, or they're like, barely, and they're like, oh, we can't be doing that, shh. And sometimes back there I want to clap, and nobody wants to clap, and I'm like, But it's funny, but here David is like dancing, and he's worshiping God, and this is like a big deal with all abandon. And that's how we should be as we worship God. We need to give it all, give him everything that we have. And so it says that he was wearing a linen ephod. Verse 15 says, so David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouting and with sounds of the trumpets. Now, as the ark of the Lord came into the city of David, Michal, Saul's daughter, looked through the window and saw King David leaping and whirling before the Lord, and she despised him in her heart. Now, when a non-believer, someone who doesn't believe in Jesus and doesn't have a close, or knows that there is Jesus, but does not have a close and intimate relationship with him, sees someone who does, and sees that there's a difference. They see someone who's abiding and in the Lord, and there's a difference. And sometimes the person can either be drawn to it, or they can despise you, like King Saul. So here's something that Michal did too. She saw David and how much he loved God as he was leaping and rolling before the Lord, and she despised him. And the fruits of the Spirit, Galatians 5:22-25. So someone who is walking and abiding and walking in the Spirit, we have love, we have joy, we have peace, we have long-suffering, we have kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. That's everything that we have when we're walking in the Spirit. And when we don't have that, we're not walking in the Spirit. We're walking in the flesh. And sometimes when someone who is not walking closely to the Lord sees someone who is, like I said, they either are drawn to it or they despise you. And this is what Saul's daughter, Michal, is doing. She sees him and she's despising him. Verse 17 says, so they brought the ark of the Lord and set it in its place in the midst of the tabernacle that David had erected for it. Then David offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. And when David had finished offering burnt offerings and peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord of the hosts. Then he distributed among all the people, among the whole multitude of Israel, both the women and the men, to everyone a loaf of bread, a piece of meat, and a cake of raisins. So all the people departed, everyone to his house. This is a huge party. This is a massive celebration. Okay, you need to understand how huge this is. Verse 20. So David returned to bless his household because he's coming in and he's filled with the love of God and he's celebrating and all the people of Israel have celebrated. And now he's coming to what? To celebrate in his home, to bless his household. And Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet David. And said, how glorious was the king of Israel today, uncovering himself today in the eyes of the maids of his servants, as one of the base fellows shamelessly uncovers himself. So he comes in with this attitude of worship and praising to God, and here's this miserable, ugly, bitter person just waiting to tear you down, to bring you down to that ground. That cloud that you're walking on, I'm about to bring it down. And that's what she's saying as she says, and she calls out to David, and she tries to bring him down, reprimand him, ruin his mood, just flatten him out. And I love David's response, because you know what? Michal, if her heart was right, if she was drawn to David, she could have been dancing too. She could have been whirling. She could have been celebrating the ark of the Lord coming to the city of David. She too could have been doing that, but she did what? She chose not to. She chose not to. Instead of being drawn to David, her husband, who at one time she loved, who at one time she saw how wonderful, how the hands of God was on him, how he conquered Goliath and slaughtered the Philistines, and how he played the harp with skill and he spoke with eloquent words. This man that she just loved and wanted to marry, now she despises him for those same things. Those same things. Now she hates him and she's trying to tear him down. I could just see her like shaking her head with her beady little eyes and just shaking the finger, you know, and he's like, hey. So verse 21, so David said to Michal, it was before the Lord. So what he did when he worshiped, when he was whirling, when he was doing all these things, it was, hey, you know what? It wasn't for you, Michal. It wasn't for anybody else. It was for the Lord. Putting her in her place. That it's not about her, it's about him and his relationship with the Lord. And that's what he is putting Michal in her place. You know what? And he chose me instead of your father. Oh, guess what, Michal? Your father at one time was chosen, but then the kingdom was torn away from him because of what he chose to do, because he chose to walk in disobedience. So he says, who chose me instead of your father and all of his house to appoint me ruler over the people of the Lord. He didn't say of his people, these are my people, you know. No, the people of the Lord, always in humility. His heart is always right. Therefore, I will play music before the Lord. It's like, I don't care what you think, Michal. I don't care if you despise me or what you think. I'm going to keep dancing and I'm going to keep playing my music for the Lord. Verse 22 says, and I will be even more undignified. I will be more abased. I will be more disgraceful, dishonorable, less royal if it's worshiping God. So yes, I will twirl and whirl in front of anyone I want to because I'm worshiping God and it doesn't matter who sees me. And I will be more undignified than this, and I will be humble in my own sight. But as for the maidservants of whom you have spoken, by them I will be held in honor, because he is a king that is leading by example. Because he is a king that worships God in spirit and in truth. Because he loves God and he doesn't care what other people think of him. As we talked about before, how people can tear you down or think we're foolish because we're here. And because we read our Bibles and because we pray. He's like, I don't care. Those people that you're thinking are tearing me down, one day they will see me and they will come to me. And they will know I walk the walk, so they will believe me when I say that Jesus saves, that Jesus changed my life. They will know it's true because they see it. They see it and they will know it's truth. So you know what? These maidservants that saw me dancing in my linen ephod as I was leaping and whirling before the ark of the Lord, as I was undignified, in them I will be held in honor because they know I truly worship the living God. They will know that I am not a hypocrite. They will know that that what I feel and what I know is to be true. And it doesn't matter what you think, Michal. Verse 23 says, and therefore Michal, the daughter of Saul, had no children to the day of her death, which does not mean like God cursed her womb. It might mean that David never went to be with her again. But what we've learned before, what is a woman with no children in society? Or is the value of a woman with no children. And here's Michal. She ended up dying with no children. But in 2 Samuel 21:8, it'll say that Michal brought up 5 sons of Adred, which we will talk about when we talk about Rizpah. But she raised up 5 sons, but that were not his, but were of her sister, I believe. So she did raise, but she never had children of her own. And how we need to learn how through David, because of David's heart, and as we saw these chapters, and I hope you go back and read 1 and 2 Samuel. It's an awesome story to read about David and Samuel and Saul and everything. But how David was faithful, though his wife was not, right? David was faithful, though his wife tried to tear him down at the end here. How we need to be steadfast and be secure in our walk and dependent on God as we can be undignified, as we can be abased for him, and we can totally abandon ourselves to him and surrender everything that we are to him. And people will think it's strange, but yet, you know what? I got something that they want. I know it is. I know I do. I know I got something that they want. They just don't know how to get it. As I walk in peace, as I walk in joy, which is my favorite, as I walk in joy of the Lord, there's nothing like that. Because though my life is like this, but my joy is the same, because my joy comes from the Lord who gives it to me. I walk by faith. I walk knowing that he's going to provide for me. I try not to worry. All these things that other people want. But you know what? There's only one way to get it. And it's through Christ. And it's through Christ. So we need to be like David and walk. God gave him the strength. If God gave him the strength, what makes you think he won't give it to us? He's the same God, right? So he will give it to us. But we just have to walk in confidence, standing upon him who is our rock. And what was the 1 year Bible from yesterday? What was yesterday's date? The 3rd. And we'll close with that. 1 year Bible. Rocks. Was it the 4th? No, the 3rd. Says Psalms 46:1-3 says, God is our refuge and strength, always ready to help in times of trouble. So we will not fear when earthquakes come and the mountains crumble into the sea. Let the oceans roar and foam. Let the oceans roar and foam. Let the mountains tremble and the waters surge. Why? Why is it okay? Because God is our refuge and our strength. So that it's going to happen. but God is our refuge and our strength, always ready to help in times of trouble. Okay, let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, just thank you. Thank you for your word. Thank you for the example that you've put in David for us as we're reading his story, Lord. Just thank you for what you've done and what you're going to do and what you're doing in all of us, Lord. We just love you, Jesus, and I just thank you for being our refuge, for being our strength, for being our joy, and we just love you, Jesus. Help us to stand on your word. Help us to apply everything that we've learned into our lives, Lord. Help us to be a woman after your heart, God. We just love you, Jesus, and we praise your name. Amen.